Let me read to you a passage from the first chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 46 to 56. It's the Gospel for the 22nd day of December in Advent, during the octave before Christmas. St. Luke writes, "And Mary said, My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him, from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent away the rich empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers." Mary stayed with Elizabeth for about 3 months and then returned home. That's from Luke chapter 1, verses 46 to 56. What does it suggest to us? Well, throughout the Old Testament, the great works of God are extolled, and his chosen servants are held up for veneration. Before Abraham, Noah, we read, was a good and blameless man in that age, for he walked with God. He is set apart by God and preserved from the flood that sweeps away in judgment the sinners that cover the earth. A new covenant is established, but the sorry pattern of sin continues unabated, symbolized by the pride of the Tower of Babel. Abraham is called by God and is promised the divine blessing. He, as we read, went as the Lord directed and proved his obedience and his faith. Following Abraham, there are the prophets, Moses, certain of the judges such as Samson and Samuel, and kings such as David and Hezekiah, the prophets such as Elijah, Elisha, Isaiah and Jeremiah, and certain of the priests. They stand as examples for God's chosen people, solemnly illustrating the supreme place God occupies in life, bearing witness to what he has done and will do. It is against this broad backdrop that we ought reflect on the words of joy uttered by the Virgin Mary in the Gospel passage I read earlier. She extols God, and because of him, she will be counted as blessed. She thinks of the story of God's care for his people from generation to generation. He, God, is great. Her soul, that is, the core of her entire self, proclaims his greatness, and her spirit exults in him who saves her. God is her Saviour. If we set the inspired literature of the Hebrews against the literature of the ancient world, the two things which Mary extols in God are those which mark Yahweh off from the other gods of the peoples. He is great and he saves. No other deity compares in greatness with Yahweh. All others in their own way compete for power with other gods. Zeus and Jupiter are not unrivaled. They are restricted by the other gods of the pantheon. But Yahweh is simply great, great beyond compare. He is, as Mary humbly sings, the Mighty One who saves. In her prayer, Mary thinks of the history of God's dealings with his people. We read, "He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts." And so we think of Yahweh sending Moses to Pharaoh to take his people out of slavery to the promised land. Pharaoh is proud of heart. Indeed, the scriptural icon of those who are proud before Yahweh is Pharaoh. But he was scattered by the plagues and wonders with which Egypt was visited at the word of Moses. We read, "He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble." We think of Sennacherib, who advanced against Hezekiah and Jerusalem, pouring scorn on the God of Hezekiah and Jerusalem. The prophet Isaiah predicted that the city would not be touched and that God would send him packing. And so we read, that night the angel of the Lord went forth and struck down 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. And so Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, broke camp and went back home to Nineveh. Second book of Kings, chapter 19. We think of the writing on the wall during the banquet of King Belshazzar, and Daniel's solemn interpretation of it, so powerful an event that the expression, the writing on the wall, is now a synonym for a destruction that is certain to come. As we heard, he has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers. In all of this, the Virgin Mary is exulting in the mighty one who saves. He shows his might in his saving mercy, rescuing and raising up those who are oppressed and suffering. As we heard, his mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. And Mary herself will be counted blessed for all generations. So she is the greatest instance of the power and the mercy of God. Her greatness, her blessedness, her shining and matchless height among God's creatures is his merciful gift to one who is but his lowly servant. Mary the humble and lowly one, Mary the blessed one, blessed beyond compare, and for all generations to come. Let us read this precious passage of the Gospel that I read earlier, which sums up so deftly the entire meaning of the Old Testament and its revelation of God and his saving ways. We could not do better than read the Scriptures with Mary's words as their key constantly in mind. With her, let us praise the might and mercy of God and count her as the Blessed One for all generations. God is great. He is merciful. He saves. He is our Saviour. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.